My lying wife stabbed me in the back, and my mother took her side. Years later, I made them regret everything. So recently, I caught my former alcoholic wife relapsing into alcoholism, and while she was asleep, I stumbled upon a text conversation between her and a close friend of mine. I found out she was having an affair, and although I didn't want to believe it at first, when it fully hit me what was happening, I left my home with the intention of ending my life. Luckily, I pulled myself together, and instead, simply stayed outside all night. Then came the next morning, and my wife started bombarding my phone. Throughout the morning, I was getting multiple texts and phone calls from her asking where I was and what the hell was up, as my work van was still sitting in the driveway, and I was nowhere to be seen. I texted her back, telling her that there was a problem with the engine, so I got a lift into work, which she seemed to buy, as she just texted back saying, "Okay." I actually went to my friend's house and spent the day with him. So, he actually convinced me to try and keep a low profile and see what I could dig up, but at the same time speak to a lawyer and get the ball rolling in terms of finding out my options. He took me home about 6 o'clock, and I was honestly dead on my feet by that point. I think the adrenaline pumping the entire day, then suddenly stopping, knocks it right out of you, so I was extremely tired when I got home. The second I walked through the door, I knew something was up, as my wife was on me right away, asking me all sorts of questions about work. I asked her why she even cares. She said that I'd left my big flask and my lunch bag in the front passenger side seat, and something's been up today. She could feel it. I was about to spill everything, but I was just too tired. I couldn't be bothered putting any sort of charade up. I just said, yeah, there is something up. That when I was putting her alcoholic butt to bed last night, a message came up on her iWatch, which I read, and all the other ones, and that she was a disgusting cheater that I wanted nothing more to do with. Her demeanor went from an arms-crossed person in power to a scared little girl within about a second. She started sobbing, and I just walked away and upstairs into the shower. When I got out, she was sitting on the top stair crying still, and the excuses started right away. How she was drunk, vulnerable, had never done anything like that before, how he had messaged her first, and it didn't mean anything. She was never going to go through with it. Pretty much everything that everyone on here was saying she would say, like she had the playbook out. The only thing she didn't do was try and blame me. She probably knew I would have thrown her right out the door if she had tried that. I told her that I wanted a divorce and her out of the house within a month. Also told her that she was moving to the spare room. I've been pretty much ignoring her ever since, just scowling at her and shaking my head when she starts waffling nonsense. I don't want to hear it. I was telling my parents what was happening, and then what I really didn't expect happened. My mother sided with her and was adamant I wasn't throwing her out onto the streets. My mother was saying she made a mistake and that we should sort it out like adults, that we've been through too much together, and that she didn't actually do anything. It was just words. She completely took her side over mine. Couldn't believe it. I managed to get myself an appointment with a divorce lawyer for next week, so I'll be going to that to discuss my options. Update. It's now been 20 days since I found out my wife was cheating on me with my friend, and the situation has become hellish. I gave her a month to get out, and she's been sleeping in the spare room, but it's clear now she doesn't have any intention of going after she got in the ear of my mother. She doesn't have anywhere to go at any rate, but that's not my problem. I've seen my divorce lawyer multiple times, and am now in the process of drawing up a divorce petition and having my wife served divorce papers. I've also opened my own bank account and taken 50% of the balance from our shared account. The atmosphere around the house has been weird, to say the least. The living room has turned into a no-man's land where no one frequents, as we both spend the majority of our times in our rooms. I had been completely ignoring her, but after reading about the 180, have started implementing that and been civil, if a little cold, towards her. I'm so glad I did this, as I was beginning to feel like a monster refusing to acknowledge her existence. It was not the right way to behave, and I ended up feeling like the one who had wronged her, rather than the other way about. The only time I broke from the 180 was when I walked into the bathroom last week, and she was sitting on the floor by the bath crying. I helped her up, and instinctively gave her a hug, though it was more of a there type hug, than one with much love attached to it. The sad thing is that I'm so suspicious of her now, that I wouldn't put it past her to be waiting on me coming in, so she could put on a performance. The thing is that probably isn't even true, but this is the sort of crap that's going through my head in this environment. It's just toxic. She's been crowing about how she'll do anything and everything to save this marriage, anything to prove to me that it was just a silly mistake, so I brought up a lie detector test. I don't plan on ever getting one done, wouldn't even know where to start. I just wanted to gauge her reaction. She was all for it. Well, until a few hours later when she came to me, tablet in hand, going on about how inaccurate they are, and that anxiety and nervousness can throw up false readings. I just laughed. Something worthy of noting too is that the friend of mine she cheated with is no longer on speaking terms with any of our mutuals. I exposed him on social media a few days ago, and I've been getting bombarded with texts from our friends as well as him. They've all turned their backs on him, which is actually very supportive to see. Anyway, I've spoken to my mother multiple times about this, and during a heated argument, asked her why she was taking my wife's side. Like, was there something she wasn't telling me here? What was she expecting? She said she has always seen my wife as the daughter she never had, but always wanted, so she latched on to my wife, and has done since we got together. As I said previously, they have a close bond. The fact my wife doesn't have any family, and only a few friends who have their own busy lives and families, means if I threw her out, she would be all alone. She tried to get me to come to a compromise, saying that in 3 or 4 months, we can look at it again and see where we are mentally, and is pushing me to try couples counseling before I throw in the towel. I'm not doing that. The thought of being in the same house as my wife makes me feel ill. If worse comes to worst, then I'm ready to walk out the door and never come back. F this house. I have to be able to look at myself in the mirror with some semblance of self-respect, and someone has to keep their word in this debacle. If I do leave, my best friend has said I can stay with him for a few weeks or so till I get myself sorted. If I do walk out that door though, I'm done with my mother. I'll never speak to her again in my life. She'll probably see it as me giving up on her, me walking away without trying to at least have a go at fixing things first. I see it as her choosing someone who broke my heart over me.